Hey guys, welcome to the Logic Speak podcast. I'm your host, Adam Bieber, and today we've got a special episode for you. We recently went live on LinkedIn with a really good friend of ours, Don Morrow from HighlandTech. They're an AI automation agency. They're building custom agents for businesses. They're helping people leverage AI assistance and AI automation. And we had a really interesting conversation that we felt like would be really cool to share with you in the form of a podcast. And so what you're going to get is part one today of the LinkedIn Live that we had just a few weeks ago, where Don and I sat down, talked about AI. We covered a whole lot, and we hope that it's super interesting, fun, and engaging for you. So enjoy this episode of the Logic Speak podcast, and then come back next week for part two, where we're going to continue that same conversation. Well, welcome to the studio. I'm glad to have you here.
Yep.
Usually you do these from your home office.
Yep.
But thank you for having us on and for coming out to the Logic Speak studios and hanging out with us. This is our podcast studio, and you and I have done a
Super
webinar
nice.
from here, which is a lot of fun.
Probably almost a year ago. Almost. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're coming up on it. Yeah, we're coming up on about a year since we did that. And then, man, I've loved tuning in and listening to these series that you've had on AI, and really just helping people have real conversations and chat about what's relevant, what's happening today. So I do have some questions that I want to ask you as we get going, but I did also want to address, like, if you're tuning in, you're watching, you just jumped on, first of all, welcome. But also I wanted to let you know that I've got a list of questions that I'm going to hit Don with, but I also wanted to open it up that if you've got a question, AI related, technology related, that you wanted to ask, to do me a favor and drop it as a comment. There's a little bit of a delay, so we will get to it when we can towards the end, but just wanted to give you guys a heads up that we'd love to see questions in the comments and be able to address some of your questions in real time here in just a little bit. So thank you all for joining us and being here. Don, why don't you kick us off, though, and kind of tell us the heart behind why you've been doing these talks and what you're hoping to equip people with today.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. AI is such an interesting topic, right? And I go back to a recent survey that Anthropic, who makes Claude, which is one of the chatbots people use.
Yep.
And they had a survey of like 80,000 people. And what they found in that survey is that overwhelmingly, most people were in this spectrum of how they felt about AI. They were very excited on one end of the spectrum, and on the other end, they were nervous, concerned, worried. And even someone that's in the space 24/7, I feel that way too, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of anxiety, I think, as a result of both, some good, some bad. And I think that it's worth a conversation to talk about, what's happening, and what maybe our audience is thinking about, and get our community, especially here in Atlanta. We have a majority Atlanta area audience. And so as we're working in our backyard, how do we bring what we're seeing practically in the field, and even maybe some questions they have, which we'll take those questions on this live stream.
Yeah.
How do we think about it, right? So you're on the cyber side, and we're on the AI development side,
Yep.
and both coincide with each other very strongly, right? Especially around the one end of the spectrum of being concerned, right? And
Sure.
then obviously, on the other end of the spectrum of like how it can enhance business and create new opportunities. And so, yeah, I mean, really where it stemmed out originally was that I had a lot of people asking me some really interesting, sometimes tough questions. And I said, that sounds like that's better over a beer than probably something I could even try to consult on or guide.
Yeah.
It's kind of a tough, like, hey, what are my kids going to do when they graduate college? And so I started this AI Talks actually last year with these happy hours that now have converted into a live workshop that we're actually going to do on April 30th. So if you're in the Atlanta area, we'd love to have you. We actually got flyers printed out. If you're in the chamber, you've seen them. You've probably gotten the invitation, and it'll be at Voodoo Brewery on April 30th from 5 to 7. So what that is like a hands-on live workshop where we're going to be testing these tools, many of them that are free and accessible to anyone, which is a part of giving our community the opportunity to learn these and what's the latest of what's going on. And so where these talks started to come from was a spin off of that, where it's like now we can get to people, even if you can't show up in person, we will show up to you through free streaming on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I love it. Yeah. Because you've got an audience that expands past the greater metro area. So do I. I've got a lot of friends in other places. And so it's fun that we can all get together around a lunch hour and hang out and talk about some cool things. But yeah, if you're local, please join us. Voodoo Brewing on April 30th, 5 to 7 p.m. Come have a drink on us. And then Don and his team are going to do some live demos and kind of walk you through just exploring AI. No matter what level you're at from a technology standpoint, it probably would benefit to come and hang out. So come have a conversation, come chill with us. At least let us buy you a drink. It'll be fun. We're looking forward to that. Is it cool if I dive in and start asking you some questions?
Yeah, man, let's rock and roll.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So the first one I have, I'm calling the AI reality check. There's so much going on. We're constantly being bombarded by friends, by content online of you should be using this. You should be using Copilot, ChatGPT, Grok's the best. Use Perplexity. Joe Rogan uses Perplexity. Like there's all these different Claude, whatever coming at us. So the AI reality check is what small and mid-sized businesses should be doing right now. What as it relates to AI, what should we be doing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that what we've seen is if AI is added to a broken process, it just breaks it faster. So I think what businesses should do on the basics is get process improvements, and we're doing the same.
Yeah.
HighlandTech is a newer company of how can we improve our internal processes that AI won't help out at all.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of urgency to move, but I think there needs to be more urgency to improve what already exists. And that would open a window or a door for AI to actually do something meaningful. You know, one easy thing is if a customer is using a lot of on-prem systems, they might want to consider modernizing to a cloud-based solution. So I think that's like the first thing, right? And I look at that from like a company perspective of, okay, before we try to make some meaningful impact with these things, we need to be prepared for it. And so there's that. The other piece is on these AI assistants that really everybody uses. That's a lot of the questioning, right? When we think about these things, we're using the Groks, the Metas, the Claudes, the Copilots or whatever. And I think, one, people already see value in those. And there's no question 8 out of 10 people use them. Maybe 7 out of 10 people will actually bring their own AI assistant to work, which is a cybersecurity issue just on that basic front.
Yeah.
Right. Just dumping whatever you want into it. And so the good news is people see value in it. The bad news is, I think, from a business standpoint, which is what this podcast is about, is that presents itself as a risk. So there's that concern for the company, but the company doesn't want to let go of the fact that they know and their employees know that this makes you wildly more productive in a lot of different ways. Yeah. And so that doesn't need to be sold to this audience or the greater audience. And so I think that those folks, and it's something I think about a lot is people going to adjust to the AI, or is AI going to adjust to them? And I think that it's unlikely that people will adjust to the AI. And I've been saying this for over a year. I said this when me and you had our training at the chamber, that people, yes, prompting is important, especially if you're building, or if you're a creative and you want to get the most out of some of these tools. But I think broadly, there's a much bigger audience that are just general users, you know, or not even using it at all. I think that there was a article that came out that said that we all feel like we're all using them, but if you look at the world, it's a very small penetration actually of users. So what do I think about that? What I think about is that there is a lot of urgency to change and there's some value that you can get out of it, but I think you should be prepared for it. And I think we should be realistic with the fact that it is going to get to the point where it will meet you where you are. And actually, I just read something this morning that talked about that, which is like, I can't even begin to try to make it simple, right? But it talked about particle physics and how in that you've got one particle that matches the other, and they're calling it like elastic AI, or sorry, it's crazy. But the idea is that it will just learn how people work and will just build workflows.
Wow.
But that's obviously it's a little further in the future. But what I'm saying is the end goal is until we get there, there's some unlock of opportunity, you know, and there's potential return on investment and in time and things that you can realize. But at some point, there's going to be a place where these things just meet you where you're at.
Yeah.
And it won't have as much friction, because right now there's a lot of friction to get AI in companies.
Sure.
Bluntly.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, it doesn't know your workflow. It has to learn what you're trying to do. And that's an example of that idea where it meets you where you're at. And until we get there, everybody's learning, everybody's trying to figure it out, including even the most basic users.
So one of the things I think that I see in here is there's a lot, because there's so much uncertainty, that there's a lot of fear around what's the long-term effect of this. Similarly to the way people reacted with the internet and, you know, the idea of we're going to all lose our jobs, and people say a lot of big statements around it.
Right.
I'm just curious from your perspective, what would you see as hype versus what's real? Like, and specifically, could you speak to, is it safe and is it secure?
Yeah. Well,
Let's talk about assistance, AI assistance first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as like job replacement, displacement, is that the topic?
Well, that could be one topic, job displacement or replacement, which that would probably be more agentic, right?
Right.
But is it safe to use? You know, people ask me all the time, like, oh, I don't know if I should get on that Chat GPT. Is it safe? And I'm like, well, it depends upon what you do with it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, exactly right. So answer you with this. So Claude has Anthropic Claude, which is like a competitor, let's say to Copilot, let's say they have something called Claude Cowork.
Yeah.
And what it is something where you can choose based on its read write privileges, what it can see and what it can do. And you decide as a user how you open that door or what doors you leave closed. They're thinking of them as toggles of access. So really, the user remains in control for that, right? And so I think that's important to note is some people are very open and they're good with it, but also with openness creates some vulnerability, more so at scale, right? It's a problem for businesses individually, maybe not so much of an issue. Individuals aren't necessarily targets right now for this, but companies can be.
Yeah.
And so meaning that if those doors are decided by an individual and not by the company, then there's a lot of security concerns with that, right? What happened with, if any of the audience knows, there's a thing that hit the internet, went viral called OpenClaw, which is basically an agent operating system that wraps around agents that provides like memory, context, prompt instruction, skill. You know, it's kind of like a package, but it's not that easy to deploy. The bigger point in that, I think that I'm calling out is that they are, for that agent to be useful or agents to be useful, you're opening up a lot of doors. So what a lot of people did, which is hysterical, is they actually gave this agentic system its own computer. They separated their data completely because they're like, yeah, I don't really want to have access to my data. Right there, you're already saying that you don't trust it.
Yeah.
You see? So when we're working with these types of systems, we do old school API integrations because we're choosing what doors and we're limiting it. Meaning we don't even allow it to see the other doors. Yeah. So if there was some sort of cyber, they call it prompt injection, that it would only allow itself to the minimal amount of doors, you know, that we decide to open up, as opposed to especially an individual deciding what doors to open up, which is a huge risk. So companies, the way I look at it is this, that companies have to maintain what doors remain open and which doors remain closed. But they did that already with access privileges. They did that already with identity access management systems, is what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, privileged access management.
Exactly. Yep. So, you know, single sign-on, Microsoft Azure, so stuff like that. And so that's how I would think about safety and security. Now, if you're just using it from an assistant and you're a consumer, then it's completely on you. Same answer, right? It's completely on you to decide. And Claude Cowork can be a consumer product, basically.
Yeah.
So you just decide what doors you open up and you close. But for example, you know, I'm more of an open guy on my consumer side because I like to see these things work. So I use Claude Cowork to have access to my desktop. And in one shot, like it's called zero shot prompting. I literally just said, here's an instruction, do it. I don't need to give you other examples. I said, clean up my desktop. And I wanted to see what it did. Yeah. So I had a crazy desktop with all these icons, 50, and it went, and in 10 seconds, it like cleaned it up.
Wow.
Now it didn't do it how I wanted to do it, but that's my fault because I gave it a zero shot prompt, which was like no examples.
Yep.
And so I can't expect it to do what I want. Right.
Sure.
So, but I chose to open the door because I'm like, you know what? I don't really want to clean up my desktop right now.
And also, doesn't matter if it's done the way you want it. Not really. For something like that.
Yeah. Imagine someone comes and cleans up your house. You're like, well, I didn't put it back where you wanted, but you don't have to clean it.
I sure am happy that you cleaned it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be mad about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So to get practical, I want to ask you, like, what are 3 places that people can start? The first thing you already mentioned was like do a process overview, because like you said, like it just accelerates the speed at which something will break if there's broken processes and broken systems. So first it could just be am I ready for this? Which I know you do, like a readiness audit, and you can partner with someone and go through that and audit their ability to actually be ready and look at processes and stuff. But what else should a company do if they're like, hey, it's a wild, wild west right now, but I want to get on board. I want to do something that kind of sets me apart, because it will be a differentiator.
Yeah. I mean, you hit, I would say, all boxes to me. I mean, I don't think anyone should do it until they either do their own self audit or they outsource that work. Because the audit is a holistic approach that really tells them how ready they are or not. Meaning we get to the point of their broken process. Well, they have to evaluate, if it can be more efficient. How do they do that? But an audit of themselves, right?
Yeah.
And like I think like LogicSpeak works on the EOS framework, and Jacqueline's a part of that. And I know you guys are into that too. That's like and I'm not an expert in that, but my understanding at minimum, what it's going to help with is process improvement.
Oh yeah.
Being efficient in
Yep.
what you're doing,
Yep.
right? So I think that in a way is itself an audit.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with technology per se.
Yeah.
And I think that has to happen. And then I think that could open the door for making them more ready when they do a readiness audit.
Yeah.
Because the readiness audit, if they have broken process, is going to come back and say, you ain't ready, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ain't ready.
Yeah.
So you need to go like get ready, and here's what you can do.
Yeah. Get with someone that, because it might be operational processes, it might be technology processes. You might just have internal, like how you function as a team processes. All of those things probably have different people that can help you focus on that improvement. So getting with somebody that can provide that guidance and help you get to a point where the readiness audit says, hey, green means go. Let's figure out some ways that we can streamline efficiency and partner with you and help you with this.
Yeah. I mean, the way I look at it too, there's these big opportunities, and then there's the everyday ones.
Yeah.
So the big ones are where you don't have to clean up your whole mess to figure it out. So there is that. Like that's what we basically work on. Company says, hey, we want to do this big swing thing and basically automate this thing. And we're like, cool. So we just need to know that process for that. So we isolate the audit to that workflow.
Yeah.
But there's a major unlock with doing that in the whole company, because what I'm saying is a lot of times if a customer comes to us and say, well, this is what we want to do. Cool. Okay. We can do that. But there might be a lot of other things that are actually way more important that are a lot easier to solve for than that big swing. You know, like a lot of what we see is based on what they do as a company. That's something that they're actually interested in automating. You know, we're actually working with a client here in Atlanta where they wanted to automate, basically they call them Schedule A's in insurance. And so that process is a lot of data entry. It's PDF data extraction from difficult to read documents, and then moving the data into some other system, which otherwise was basically data extraction, data input. But what we found when we were going through the process is when they choose insurance plans, because I think they're like a middleman, that I said, okay, well, what's your decision rubric for deciding on the plan? And they're like, well, it's complicated. I said, maybe it's not. What is it? Like, let's talk about it. So what we find out in that is that there's a lot of variables to decide the right insurance plan. So the ones that are most frequent, we could probably build for, but the ones that are not, we leave to the humans. Because there's a thought that all of a sudden this is going to just automate my whole thing. But the reality is if it automates 30% or 40% of some process, that's great. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. But now imagine trying to do that across the whole company. You can't do that unless you get some sort of like holistic, higher, let's call it deductive logic type of approach here, where we're looking at the different departments, talking to the department leaders, maybe first line managers, individual contributors that are handling these repetitive tasks daily. And then that's when you start to see where your best opportunities are, as opposed to just making the assumption because we know this one takes a lot of work, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not that they can't, it's just that it's better, I think, that they do that. But obviously a part of that process is to say, out of these use cases, these are the ones you're ready for, but you would have a lot more use case opportunities if you were modernized or your processes were improved in XYZ areas.
I read something the other day that I wanted to tell you about because I just thought it was so amusing and funny. But it was a post, I think maybe on LinkedIn, and the guy goes, I wanted AI to be able to help me cook, clean, fold laundry, do chores so that I could spend more time being creative, writing, being artistic. And now AI helps me do all the writing and artistic automatically. So I have more time to cook, clean, and do chores. But I mean, it made me laugh because I was like, that's kind of where we are right now ish. But it's interesting to see, like, there are some really, really interesting, like the whole humanoid thing that's coming.
Right.
And kind of the potential there of like everybody having a in-home kind of AI assistant that's human-like that can do some of those chores. Like it kind of creeps me out. It's like iRobot kind of.
Yeah.
But it's just so interesting. A big conversation that people are having, and hopefully this is relevant for folks that are listening, is kind of where AI and human interaction, where technology ends and people begin. How, and I hope that by talking about this, it eliminates some of the fear of like, we're going to become redundant. There's going to be nothing that we can do. Where do you see AI kind of helping us to gain efficiency, but where the break is and where humans will always be needed or a benefit to society and business.
I mean, my current view on that today might be very different 5 years from now.
Yeah.
But
100%. Yeah. Go ahead though.
Maybe I won't even get to have a viewpoint because AI will just have it for me. I don't know. But my current stance is if it's repetitive and predictable,
yep,
and it's on a computer,
yeah,
AI can probably do it better than you. Probably.
Wow.
But and that either is true today or it's trending in that direction. The part where AI falls flat, I would say miserably today, is, and maybe that will change in the future, is it lacks intuition and it lacks taste. It predicts, but prediction is different than what your gut says because you were a law enforcement officer for 30 years and you just know based on this scenario that this person's about to lose it.
Yeah, something doesn't feel right.
Something doesn't feel right.
Yeah,
So there's intuition there. And then example, and then taste is like creativity, right? So you kind of just look at something and you're like, you know what? I just need a little bit of extra and or whatever. And I think there's something there that is hard for these systems to mimic. It's just statistical models, right? They're statistically trying to predict what's the most likely thing to do or what's the mean average thing to do. And so it's lacking on those things today.
Yeah.
The other thing when you mentioned robots, and this is well said in the AI community, that the thing that AI finds easy, we find difficult, and the things we find easy, they find difficult. For example,
a great point.
AI can't, to your point. So actually, technically, HighlandTech can resell robots, by the way. I never say this to people. I got into like a resale arrangement. So if you're looking for some robots.
You heard it live here.
Yeah. But the reality of that is like where they're selling into is they're still teleoperated, you know? So if you see them do anything useful, it's usually that. If they're dancing around, it's like, okay, well, I don't really have an interest in entertainment per se, right? If I was giving someone a robot, they're being used in colleges so students could program using the different tools that they have. It's getting better, but my point is like they're trying to do at-home stuff and it sucks now. It'll get better over time. All these things will get better over time. But imagine how easy our day-to-day is just working in the kitchen, that these things I find incredibly difficult. But you give it a math problem, some of the difficult ones in the world, and it's gonna crush you. It's going to crush you in coding for the most part, right? You just writing. I mean, some of the writing is so good. It might not do like a full novel or like a script for, creative script for a movie, not like that. But your day-to-day stuff, it's great, you know? And so I think if you're in the space where you're doing repetitive work that's on a computer, it's predictable. It does not require human taste or human intuition. Then that's the problem area where you're going to fold in, that job's going to fold into some AI thing at some point. Now it's really up to, I've said this before. I think we said this when you and I together the first time, that's up to the companies to decide that, right? There's no AI clean sweep coming for your job. It's the company deciding that they want to automate something that people did. And so to me as leaders, and I was actually on a call once, we're at an awkward conversation. We were building an agent and it was doing a good part of the work of a worker. And she was like, hey, is this going to replace my job? And the leader's not on the call. And I'm like, it's not for me to say, but what I will tell you is I think this presents an opportunity for you to rise to your potential.
Yeah.
And I think
that's a great way to put it.
And when you were stuck doing these things, which is this data entry, you're meant for more.
Yeah.
And I think what it's going to do is push people to do that. And I don't unfortunately think that people are going to rise to the occasion. A lot of people, there might be some universal basic income that will come out, for those people that don't change. And that's the unfortunate part. I mean, the biggest problem in all of this is that the technology is going faster than anyone can adopt. And what that looks like, what that trends into is this idea of, which is probably a much bigger definitely bigger conversation. Anything we'll cover today is singularity. And singularity basically says that this AI stuff will get to the point of no return where we don't understand its level of improvements.
Wow.
So when we see ChatGPT 5.4 come out and then a month from now 5.5, and so imagine it's iterating and improving on itself. They call it self-recursive learning, basically self-improving AI. It's updating itself every minute to seconds.
Yeah.
No one can follow that. Only AI can follow that, right?
Yeah.
And so how does anyone keep up? You think you're overwhelmed now that the speed of what they call exponential growth, they actually look at these in charts. What we expect as growth is, as humans, we see iterative growth, right? We look at some technology and we say it goes up in stages.
Yeah.
But what's happening here is there's going to be a massive straight up line. No more hockey stick. It's literally like an L.
Yeah.
And that's what concerns me the most, is that the technology is outpacing anyone's ability to adapt, which is why I know for a fact that AI will have to adapt to people the other way around, meaning we feel a lot of pressure to adapt. And I think we're in that mode now because we all want to unlock some productivity gains. But I think at scale, the AI will just find its way to us, and we'll just consider it as a coworker, as a partner.
One of the things that I think is so interesting, you and I have said this before, is that like the more automated, the more technological the world becomes, the more that we crave human interaction. And so I think there will be an increase in the value on relational positions, relational roles. Like you can't replicate in person. The reason why we're doing this in-person event is because you just can't replicate that feeling of shaking hands with someone and looking at someone's eyes and having a conversation, and the interaction is completely lost without there being a human involved. And so as we crave more human interaction, just relationally and as people and in our personal lives, like professionally too, like business transactions are still going to rely on a relationship. Partnership is still going to be heavily predicated on competency. Is table stakes at this point. Like your ability to execute is going to be like, that's a no brainer. You have to have that. But your ability to relate and connect, I think, is what's going to be a differentiator. So it's interesting because we all want to get better. We all want that technology edge. But also, if you want to rise to the occasion, if you want to elevate yourself and elevate your role, I would work on presentation skills. I would work on soft skills and learn how to relate to people. Read some psychology books, understand how people think and act. Even like the psychology of a sales cycle, like that alone is, again, you can't automate a gut feeling.
Yeah. That's the intuition and taste that I think is worth investing in. There's also the physical work area too. When we say some things a long-term bet on, that's a good space because the robots are having a hell of a time putting away dishes, much less do construction work, right? But it's also doing surgery at the same time. So like, I don't think anything's safe, but I think you're right. I think the long term is, how do we bet on what's only human? And I think intuition and taste falls somewhere into that. And that's what they should do. I think there was an ex Google, it was Google X, which is funny because he used to work there. So ex Google X, there was an organization called Google X, which is a spin-off from Google. This guy talked about something that kind of blew my mind a little bit. And it was a simple idea, but it made me think the importance of us having to align ourselves with AI as almost a requirement and not an option. And so look at it this way. If you have an IQ of 170 points or 200, or 140, I think you're like at genius level. I think maybe it starts at 140. I don't know, but you're like brilliant. You're talking, some of the smartest minds in the world. But what happens when you align yourself with this AI that is improving at a rate that no human can? And let's say you're an average Joe. I don't even know what that is of IQ. Let's say it's 120 points or something. I don't know. But then now you become an expert at working with this AI, and now you're at 350 IQ points. So here's what I think what will happen. If you do not align yourself with AI, even if you're a genius, you will not work past someone that is an average Joe that knows how to use it. So when I think about sometimes where I said it's going to meet people, I still believe that to be true to get out at scale. But what does concern me is there will be people, maybe not really, but I think it's an opportunity, the way I look at it, that if you do not align yourself with this as a core part of your work life, you will get, that's what they say, people that will work with it will replace you kind of thing. But I never really thought about it that as a critical thing until that was put that way. That now in the future, you're competing against IQs of 300, 350, 500, and ain't nobody competing with that. And intelligence, in a lot of ways, wins in the end of the game.
Oh, I'll take my 90 IQ partnered with a 200 plus powered AI agent assistant up against a 140 IQ who's riding solo.
But it's also interesting, in that same podcast I listened to, the podcast host was saying, well, what do we define as intelligence? Intelligence comes in different forms. It's not just, so the way we look at these AIs, they have benchmarks to human IQ. And what they measure as human IQ usually falls in the STEM category: science, technology, engineering, math, the things that are verifiable. Verifiably to be true, coding, all of this. Okay, that we can agree those are very smart people. But there's also intelligence and creativity, and in art and in poetry and in human connection.
Yeah.
Right? You have a gift, Adam. You can connect with people super quick, and there's an intelligence level to that. It might not be, and here's the thing where I think about this and maybe too deeply, is that the world has defined IQ points when you take these exams, but I feel like a lot of it is on the back of academia, of what's been most, how can I say, prized by academia, which is like in the STEM category mostly.
Sure.
But what about all the art majors, right? That did art history, that, they call them starving artists, but they can replicate a photorealistic painting. That's hard to capture maybe in an IQ test.
Yeah.
So, but that's how we measure AI intelligence. So maybe someone has a 300 IQ point, right? Whatever. But now we have this artist, right? That doesn't necessarily get measured in that way. But going back to what you're saying, or what we're saying, agreeing to, is that now we fall back into the human taste and intuition.
Yeah.
The unmeasurable, but the measurable. It's unmeasurable maybe to AI, but it's measurable to people.